edition of Mr. Merrigan's Moments in Geography. We are going to continue our journey in Western Europe today, and we are going to be looking at Germany and what we call the Alpine countries. In particular, we're going to learn more about Austria and Switzerland today. So what are we going to be able to do today? We're going to be able to locate these places, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland on a map. We'll also look at Liechtenstein there too. I can also describe the German economy, the government, and its people. And then we're also going to be able to describe the physical and cultural traits of those Alpine nations. In particular, we're going to focus on Austria and Switzerland today. So let's kick things off with Germany. For my U.S. listeners and for my class, if you're looking for a comparison to U.S. geography, Germany is about the size of Montana, and that has changed a lot over its history. And that just happens to be what it is today. In fact, a lot of people in the United States claim German ancestry. As far as European ancestry, it's the largest group that people claim ancestry from in the United States. It finds itself in the north, kind of flanked by the northern European plain, and then in the south by the Alps, which is something certainly that the three nations that we talk about today have in common. The Danube and the Rhine are both very important, not only economically for the production of energy, but also for transportation, certainly, and moving German goods to a variety of different ports. Berlin is its capital. Hamburg is also a very important port city on the Elbe River as well. So a lot of connection here in the physical geography. Rivers are very important to the German economy along with the German lifestyle. So let's take a look at that economy. Germany is a very big player on the global markets and the global stage. They are definitely a leader in the EU. They've provided a lot of discipline along with decision-making in the EU, and certainly are very important when it comes to producing goods for not just Europe, but for the world. The Ruhr Valley is actually one of the world's most important industrial centers. And as you guys can see by some of these pictures, many German companies find their home there, including Mercedes-Benz and BMW. And so you'll find everything from coal and iron ores, certainly, which are going to be important raw materials for producing things like steel and certainly cars in the case of R2 here. And certainly ships, machinery, chemicals, and more modernly, electrical equipment. Germany certainly in its history has proven itself several times over to be very important as an economic powerhouse. It's definitely increased a demand for labor, which has brought in a lot of immigrant workers from a variety of different places around the world. Germany, in some of its cities like Berlin, actually has more housing than it does people. And so they certainly have brought in, whether it's Syrian refugees or other refugees from around the world, in order to deal with that aging population in Germany. It is still importing about a third of its food, but still certainly is a leader in things like cheese, wine, and beer. It's also has a very highly developed infrastructure for transportation. The Autobahn certainly connects almost all, if not all, of the cities of Germany. Certainly shipping is something that's very well connects Germany, along with certainly things such as trains. Shifting gears to the government, for my U.S. listeners and for my class, they have a federal republic very similar to the United States, one in which power is divided between the national government as well as the state governments. And yes, Germany is made up of states. They elect a president whose powers are mostly ceremonial. Where most of the power comes from is that legislative body, who then appoint a leader in what is called the chancellor, who then leads the government. And since 2005, that has been Chancellor Angela Merkel. And certainly helping to lead Germany through not only its economic struggles in 2007 and 2008, but certainly through many challenges as a leader in the EU too. Germany's history also in 1990, Eastern and Western Germany were reunited. Eastern Germany had been a part of the Soviet Union, but then after the fall of the Berlin Wall, as well as the Soviet Union, it was brought back and unified with Germany. So that reunification certainly has posed some challenges for modern Germany, but there have been recovering well. The German people, there's around 82.6 million, and that number is certainly growing again as they bring in groups from a variety of different places around the world, arriving between 100 and 400 CE or AD. German history also boasts a lot of important figures when it comes to religion. A monk and later teacher by the name of Martin Luther helped to create several Protestant faiths, especially Lutheranism, through the Reformation. And so today, certainly there are a number of Protestants still in Germany. Lutheranism certainly can be found there. But the number of Protestants to Catholics is actually about equal now in Germany. But again, a large part of that is due to its history with Martin Luther. Germany also is the home of Johann Sebastian Bach and Ludwig van Beethoven, both of which are pretty heavy hitters in the classical music world. Munich in the south of Germany is also home to a lot of culture, great museums, certainly theaters and concert halls, also well known for the celebration that is Oktoberfest, which again centers around German culture. All right, let's shift gears now. Let's talk a little bit more about the Alpine countries. So again, just to label those, you see dominated by the Alps, but again, we're talking about Switzerland, we're talking about Austria, and we're talking about Liechtenstein. We'll get more into Liechtenstein at another time, probably not as much today. Switzerland is a very stable and democratic government and has been for over 700 years. One of the interesting things about Switzerland is they have consistently and effectively practiced neutrality, whether it's during World War I or during World War II, but throughout its 700-year history, it has remained neutral in several conflicts. And that has made Geneva a really important international center for organizations and also certainly international agreements. When we're looking at other cities, Bern is the capital, but Zurich is definitely the largest of the cities. Zurich is also an important travel hub for many European travelers. It also sits on, they all both sit on that high plateau, which again is where most of the farming in Switzerland takes place. Certainly the Rhine River would connect Switzerland to Germany, and that along with the Rhone River provide a great deal of electricity. So hydroelectric power is very important to Switzerland and certainly helps to eliminate some of those emissions. Switzerland does need to import quite a bit of raw materials, and part of that is due to its size. But because of that importation, they have specialized in creating kind of more finished goods. And so they export things like electronics, clocks, certainly watches. Switzerland's very well known for its watches, chemicals, chocolate, and of course, cheese. Tourism, finance, and certainly insurance all thrive here. And again, this is very important to the international community as well. In Switzerland, there are 4 national languages. You certainly have German, French, Italian, and a more unique language, which is mostly found in the southeast of Switzerland, what's called Romansh. And I challenge you to look into that. Romansh is a very interesting language, and again, very unique to this part of the world. Last nation we're going to talk about today is Austria, certainly not least though. So definitely among the more mountainous nations around the world, has a very connected history, especially in the 1900s or the 20th century with Germany. But it also has its own very strong and varied economy. It also has its own unique history. Certainly the rivers, much like we saw or talked about here with Switzerland, generate a lot of hydroelectric power. Timber is also very important here. Again, this is another connection that it has with Germany, and certainly that industry is found throughout the alpine forests. Dairy cattle, livestock, sugar beets, grains, potatoes, fruits, again, thrive here. about 8.2 million. So it's definitely, as far as population goes, it's a little bit smaller. It's mostly urban, and you will predominantly hear people speaking German. And it's 80% Catholic. So again, for the region, tends to be a more Catholic nation, especially compared to Germany. Vienna is a cultural center too, a beautiful city, gorgeous architecture. You find it along the Danube River. Tremendous cultural hub, claiming monumental artists like Mozart and Schubert. Again, two heavyweights in the classical music world. And that's going to about cover us for today. I highly encourage you to check out the check-in quiz here. And of course, check out that challenge question. For my students, if you have questions about this, please come and talk with me. Otherwise, for my learners outside of my class, thank you so much for listening. Keep on learning, and thank you for listening today. Have a wonderful day.